I'm Sam Noir, and you are listening to the True North Country Comics Podcast.
Welcome to the True North Country Comics Podcast, dedicated to promote Canadian comic book creators and supporters. It's September 18th, 2020. I'm John Swinimer. If you have a comment, criticism, or question, you can contact me at john@truenorthcountrycomics.com. On this episode, I chat with Sam Noir. The podcast is available on Apple Podcasts and Google Podcasts. Sam is a writer and cartoonist. His work includes covers for the Chapter House Comics Summer Special and Captain Canuck #1. He's contributed to Steampunk Originals from Arcana, Monstrosity from Alterna, Cerebus Low Society, Toronto Comics, Strange Romance, Hogtown Horror, and is a creator of indie comics such as Munsters, Victorian 4, Holmes vs. Moriarty, Zip Kramer, Clanky, and Major North, and many more. He's also helped create the Cauldron magazine anthology, and he's also a product developer at Odeon Toys, including the official Captain Canuck action figures. So, without further ado, here's my chat with Sam Noir. So, Sam Noir, thank you very much for taking time to chat with me.
Always a pleasure, John.
I appreciate it. What I normally do to start off the conversation is ask about the first comic book. So I wonder if you remember, what was the first comic book you read?
I think it's hard to. I think we've covered. I might have mentioned a Neil Adams cover with Superman in green kryptonite, but this time another possibility of my first, because it was so early, my first experience of comics. It could have been an issue of a coverless issue of Super Goof.
Okay, yes, I remember that now. Yes.
Goofy is a superhero. You know, this was back in the day when superheroes were so popular. And he wore red long johns and a blue cape. And I don't think I ever had the cover to this, or if I did, I was so young I must have torn it off. But it is one of the earliest comic memories I have. And again, you know, this was perfectly suitable for a toddler, a Disney comic. So
absolutely.
Again, this is one of the handful of comics, and I'm never quite sure because comics has been such a lifelong thing for me. And I remember them for as long as I've been around.
Now, speaking of all your work that you're doing, one of your latest projects is the newest issue of Cauldron, which is tremendous. So I wonder if you could talk a bit about what's this new issue all about.
Well, really excited about this, John. Essentially, it's been a tough year. It's been a challenging year for so many folks, but we found as creators, we've kind of all come together. And this time, usually we're working on our own anyways. In this case, even sort of a lot of the planning and stuff like that went virtually. But we have an amazing lineup of creators that we've been able to sort of assemble through the new, Zoom chats and emailing and stuff like that. Because often we'll at least see each other at shows and have really great conversations there. But in terms of the folks that are new to this, I'm really excited to mention Tashawn Dwyer. Mm-hmm. He's one of the members of the From a Hat Collective, an incredible. They're all, relatively young and have all sort of broken into the scene like gangbusters. And we were really impressed by Tashawn's first comics effort, his self-published Desert Messiah. Mm-hmm. And he's been on our list, and he delivered an amazing story. It was a wonderful experience working with him. We have Daniel Wong, again, another amazing artist that I've known for years. I believe we first met at Ty Templeton School.
Oh, wow. Cool.
And he, in my mind, he was always sort of one of the superstars there. So, and I believe he was part of the Spent Pencils collective for the longest time, and I'd see him sort of on the convention circuit. What's kind of interesting about both Tashawn and Daniel's stories, in completely sort of separate and individual ways of telling stories, they've used a sort of Eastern In the case of Daniel, a samurai epic with a supernatural bent dealing with death. Yeah, his stuff is amazing. He's got a very interesting palette as well. I've sent you some artwork that can accompany when you put the post up. But
Sure.
yeah, in terms of Tashawn's, there's some again in a completely different way, in a completely different style of his own. He also has, he brings sort of what's the best way to describe it? A manga or anime, a very kinetic style to his stuff. We're all tickled to have both these creators on board. They've been on our radars forever. And the third newcomer who's doing a story is Jonathan Kachuba,
Oh, right. Yeah. Hmm.
who's also been on our list of folks because he does a lot of horror and supernatural related things. And we thought he would be a perfect fit. Now, whereas Tashawn and Daniel are sort of fully formed creators unto themselves, not that Jonathan isn't, but in our volume at least, Tashawn and Daniel are writing and drawing their own stories. We've paired up an interesting combination. Casey Parsons,
Wow.
a fantastic artist in his own right, and yeah, Casey really wanted to work with Jonathan. They came up with this project together, and we're doing something that's a little more in the sci-fi vein. So they
Okay.
sort of describe it in that Clive Barker meets Ridley Scott feel, with paranoia out in space and horrific creatures that set upon peaceful colonizers. So
Wow.
their stuff is phenomenal. And actually, it's kind of fascinating the way they've been working together because Casey's a very sort of visual person. So they've actually started, I believe, like Casey has sort of a more looser script, and then they've worked on the visuals together in terms of, putting things back and forth. But in terms of the hand of the artist, Jonathan is doing the art chores, even though I guess the storytelling, shall we say, has been a little more collaborative, if I'm remembering correctly.
Yeah, I don't know if you know the story, but Jonathan was dying to get into Cauldron, and he was like hoping that you'd ask him. So one day he just said, "Hey, can I be in this thing?" And you guys said yes. So
Yeah,
so I'm
yeah.
sure he's most appreciative. That's for sure.
And he's been on our list since close to the beginning as well. Like I was
Wow.
really impressed by his sort of indie stuff. And again,
Hmm.
because we only come around, theoretically twice a year, and then last year was a bit of a delay. We only had the one issue. Getting around to all the people we really really want to work with. So it's really exciting that we're sort of ticking off more and more people, and yeah, potentially having them join the Cauldron rotation would be wonderful. Again, I don't want to speak too soon, but
Right, right.
we're so impressed, and we have our go-to artists who are amazing and loyal, and we love working with them. So in the case of returning artists, Casey Parsons, again, is drawing a story that I'm collaborating with him. It's a short. Basically, our mascot, the Dweller in the Cellar, is meeting an all-new character who graces our cover.
Oh,
This character's name is Satanella.
okay.
And just as our magazine is inspired by the publications of the 70s and 80s, like creepy and
Right. Yeah.
eerie and heavy metal, I kind of wanted to come up with a fun character in the sort of femme fatale vein. So yeah, I basically thought Satanella, and
Hmm.
then I Googled her. It was like finding treasure, John.
Oh, really?
Yes, Satanella originates from a 17th century French novella, which
Wow.
is called The Devil in Love. And it is one of the very first they call the fantastique genre, where basically a young nobleman of pious disposition is seduced by the devil who takes the guise of a woman. And this is actually its history is quite deep in media because it's been adapted into over the course of 3 centuries, ballet, opera, plays, films of other novels have referenced it and taken the character. So even as recently as Roman Polanski doing the film The Ninth Gate
Oh, okay.
with Johnny Depp, this character Satanella, again based on a character steeped in antiquity, is in there. So it really sparks my imagination.
I
And so
bet.
the best way to describe her is sort of a femme fatale in the vein of Vampirella, but there's
Hmm.
something almost like Alan Moore's Promethea. I don't know if
Yes.
you're familiar with
Hmm.
that series,
Hmm. Hmm.
in which this character incarnates in different media and different forms across the years, and so we're really playing around with that. So the characters come quite alive for me. Not only is there a cover, which I should mention is by Paul Limhenko, one of our really good friends who provided the back cover of our previous issue. And he's also living in Thailand currently. So that was actually kind of a fun challenge going back and forth with him.
Right.
While he's in Thailand, we've had a few, I've at least had a few Zoom calls with him trying to figure out when our hours align. But he's done an amazing cover. I can't wait for folks to see it. We've started posting hints of it on social media, so folks can go over to Cauldron magazine or any of the creators they'll be seeing this image everywhere of this, at least our interpretation of this character, Satanella. I should also mention, I want to give Christopher Yao a shout out because he sort of came up with the initial visual
Oh,
for
okay.
this character of
Hmm.
Satanella that's going to be our version. And then what's amazing is I've kind of got a few stories in the works with different artists where they take Chris's initial design and do their version
Hmm.
set in different time periods. So we have Paul on the cover. Inside, we've got The Dweller in the Cellar versus Satanella, where Casey helps me with beautiful painted art about a little bit of an overview
Hmm.
of the real history of this character. And we might embellish this history, but some of the history is out there as it can get. The author, for example, of The Devil in Love, this was during the times of the French Revolution, was guillotined. So
Oh.
I'm looking forward to getting deeper into story of elements, dealing with the original creator of Satanella
Hmm.
as well. And then rounding out our 4 interior stories, we have Jason Takowitz returning once again, one of my favorite collaborators. And he also is doing a Satanella story set in a turn of the century arcade.
Oh.
I don't know if you've ever seen any of these turn of the century amusement arcades, but it involves a lot of sort of creepy puppets. And
Ah.
the proprietor of this creepy arcade has just sort of returned from war with PTSD, and his wife is sort of longing for, to start a family. She makes the mistake of putting a quarter into
Oh no.
one of the what are they called, the cinema machines
Okay.
with the
Hmm.
turning cylinders. Do you know what I mean?
Yes. Hmm. Hmm.
With a loop on it, and it happens to be Satanella's machine. So
Oh,
that's our lineup.
that's tremendous.
We also have a short story by Oliver Ho, who is also an alumni of Ty Templeton School, who does wonderful horror-oriented stuff. So it was really important for me to sort of get him involved. And a couple of pinups as well. Bryce Hall, my former studio mate at Comic Book Embassy, also an alumni of Ty Templeton School, currently works as one of the, I believe, in-house illustrators, amongst other things, at the National Post. And our new studio mate at Raid, Andrew Dorland, who is phenomenal. And we'll talk a little bit more about Andrew Dorland in a bit.
Sure. That's tremendous. I mean, gosh, that's a chock-a-block of entertainment there, I tell you. And I understand you've got something to promote Cauldron too happening at the Raid's new gallery space. Wonder if you could talk about that for a bit.
Absolutely. The grand opening of this space, there is a storefront art gallery in Toronto at the corner of Queen West and Roncesvalles. And yeah, the first show in there, starting this Saturday through to October 17th, is a Cauldron exhibition. So we previously had an art show at a wonderful art gallery slash tattoo parlor and wanted to sort of do something similar. And it just so happened that there's a few of us tabling here at the Raid studio, and it coincides with our Kickstarter campaign. So we will have a lot of artwork from contributors across all four issues, as well as potential contributors for future issues as well.
Well, that's pretty exciting, I tell you, to see. Like, it's one thing to see a book complete, but I'm always fascinated to see someone's work physically in real life. You know what I'm saying? Like, physically there in a space where you can go, wow, look at that. And it's just tremendous.
Absolutely. Seeing the hand of the artist. I'm going to
Mm-hmm.
call out Casey Parsons in this case, whose paintings have been just getting better and better every single issue. But just to be able to see, the scope of his fully painted work will be amazing. Robert Freeman has just been by today, dropped off his work, and he's done some ink and watercolor stuff in addition to his pages. We're kind of fascinated as we sort of get the work in as the different sizes people are working at as well, because Cauldron has sort of the magazine ratio. Everyone doesn't always work on the traditional comic board, so they sort of make do. So some are quite large, and some of them are actually surprisingly smaller. Jason Tokowitz's pages, he's actually has been experimenting over the course of different issues with different size pages as well. So it's kind of interesting to see, for example, his Haunted Memories story that I did with him compared to his Saint Nella. And he's also done some pinups and watercolors that will be on display. I believe Adam Gorham's cover will be on display. Bobby Gorefield will have a piece on display. We, unfortunately, Paul Lim Henko's cover, shipping that from Thailand in time for the show isn't necessarily feasible. So we've done the second best thing, which is we've gotten a high resolution print on canvas that will be displayed. So we're quite excited about that. And basically a dozen or more Cauldron creators will be on hand. The launch date the show launches on the 19th, but we'll be here through to the October 17th, I believe. So they can, folks out there can Google the Raid Studio or the Raid Gallery and come on down during gallery hours, regular daytime hours. There's a wonderful coffee bar inside the Raid Gallery and retail space. And yeah, they can even pick up not only Cauldron, but comics by various Raid members, as well as the Raid anthology.
Right. Yeah. Good stuff. Now you're a busy fellow doing all this, but understand you've got even more on the go with something called Ballyskillen. I wonder if you could talk a bit about that now.
We talked about sort of pandemic projects, and this was sort of an interesting situation in that I started tabling here at Raid at the beginning of the year, around February. And at the very same time, a gentleman literally, in my mind at least, stepped off the plane from Ireland, where he had been living for the past 2 years, and started at the studio as well. And the pandemic occurs, and essentially, Andrew and I kind of, as sort of the new guys, got to know each other during this pandemic, and found we were very simpatico as creators. And so Andrew, being of Irish descent, he's from Canada, and having lived in Ireland for the last couple of years, had a lot of ideas of a contemporary fantasy series involving Irish mythology and folklore. So Essentially, his idea was there was a mysterious, hidden community of fairies in a small town in Ireland. And yeah, there's a gentleman there who was blackmailed by an ancient druid into becoming the human agent for these fairies. And his first task is to stop a killer within their community. So, along with a shapeshifter known as a puka and a punk rock leprechaun, he sets upon this task. It's a contemporary fantasy, but it's also sort of an action comedy thriller as well.
So this is a comic book then?
It is a physical comic book, but what's really, really exciting about this, Andrew is a storyboard artist who also does animatics. One day, I guess he was just sort of playing around with, there's the programs that he uses for his animation and animatics and video presentation work. Mm-hmm. And he realized one day that there's sort of another, and this is after we've started in on this comic book Ballyskillen. I had already, I think, during the pandemic, I wrote 100 pages of script, which essentially equals 4 issues or a collected graphic novel. And as Andrew started drawing this, he started thinking how it would look animated, and then realized that in terms of a comic book about a hidden fairy community, wouldn't it be amazing to try to sort of incorporate as if the pages came alive by magic? And the way to do that would be with augmented reality. Wow. So you can enjoy the story on its own as a comic book or a digital comic book, but we talked about it. And the one thing, there are augmented reality comics out there, but a lot of them are sort of novelty items that sort of link you to maybe behind the scenes video. Okay. Or if you sort of put your camera over top of the page, it animates. There might be some sound effects or music. You know, the dialogue might be spoken, or there might be narration, but none of it, I guess you'd call it motion comics.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
But in our research, we realized no one was actually using this augmented reality technology as a storytelling tool. And what perfect way to tell a story about a hidden fairy community than to have, for example, just to give you an example of what one of the animation tricks would be, is that, these fairy folk within this town are glamored into human appearance, but the reader can enhance their enjoyment of the book by putting the augmented reality camera over top and seeing some of the disguised fairy folk as they appear rather than in their human forms, and vice versa.
That sounds cool.
Yeah.
That's something that I don't think I've ever seen that before.
Yeah, and Andrew's amazing. It's a lot of work. It's a lot more work that, he's already a very, very detailed-oriented artist. His pages are just phenomenal. When you write a battle scene for him, he will draw the whole battle scene. Normally in scripts, I might put, you can put this in silhouette as long as we get the hint that this is a big epic battle scene, but he'll draw every body on the battlefield. And then the animation he came up with to enhance the story, because this opening image is the aftermath of the battle. He actually decided, why don't we, for the folks that want to expand their understanding of the story, why don't we show parts of this battle?
Wow.
So, by clicking on the augmented reality, you understand that this is an aftermath of the battle, but you actually get to see some of this battle fought in an animation. And of course, folks currently can go over to Ballyskillen.com, BALLYSKILLEN.com, and sample this technology for themselves. The apps, by the time this show is up, should be available in both Android and Apple formats. And what they can do is take their camera and bring up the images on another device, such
Okay.
as an iPad or a laptop or a desktop or another phone even, and view the animations for themselves. For
Oh,
those
okay.
who there's also YouTube videos where we show samples of and then animated GIFs as well, just to give folks the idea. And again, if all things are going as planned and Apple accepts our final version of the app, we should be up on Kickstarter the Tuesday after this podcast airs.
Wow, this is cool. It sounds like you got a lot on the go. I mean, you don't rest, do you?
Well, to be honest, we've known each other for a few years now, and you see me at all these shows week after week. So
Sure.
yeah, it was actually kind of tough for me, even though I keep saying I'm going to take a bit of a break or do less shows, just to sort of have something to do during lockdown. And it was very fortunate that we had the other issue of Cauldron gearing up, as well as meeting Andrew and him sort of presenting these characters and concepts to me. And to be honest, I'm such a fan of fantasy, such as Neil Gaiman stuff and Saga and Fables. So just to be able to do something in this vein, I've been waiting for years for someone to come along who would want to work on a contemporary fantasy series with me. So
Sounds really exciting, that's for sure. Good stuff. Well, Sam, thank you very much for taking time to chat with me. I really appreciate the information, and I look forward to seeing you in the very near future.
no worries, John. Thank you again. Always a pleasure talking to you, and you stay well, my friend.
Well, thanks again, Sam. We'll talk to you next time. Take care. Thanks to Sam for the chat. You can discover more about Sam on Twitter at HeySamNoir and online at sam-noir.tumblr.com. And thanks to you for listening to the True North Country Comics podcast. If you haven't done so already, please subscribe to and like this podcast on Apple Podcasts. And please leave a good rating. Also check out the TrueNorthCountryComics.com website and follow on Twitter at True North Comics. Please send your feedback to John at TrueNorthCountryComics.com. Thanks again for listening and come back soon for another episode. Bye for now. True North Country Comics podcast is copyright True North Country Comics, copyright 2020.